And a big hello. I'm delighted to welcome you to another episode of our Metabolic Balance podcast. This is where we share real stories and insights to help you with your journey to optimal health with personalized nutrition. I'm Cherry Wills, I'm your host, and I am delighted to say I'm joined today by Angela Critelli, who is sharing her metabolic balance journey that she went on as a client of one of our fabulous MB practitioners here in Australia. Hello, Angela. It's so wonderful to see you.
Hello, thank you for having me here.
So, can you paint a picture for everybody of where you were at? What led you to talk about, well, find out about metabolic balance?
Yeah, so my journey is a very interesting one. In November of 2023, I was unfortunately diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis, which is an autoimmune disease that attacks the nervous system. Now, I knew nothing about the disease, and my mind
Wow.
sort of went to
Yeah.
the worst case scenario. I got in contact with doctors and neurologists quite quickly, and one thing I really felt in my heart to do was to get in contact with the naturopath. Never had seen a naturopath before, and
Okay.
I got in contact with Aralina Isi, and we got along so well from the get go. And she really was driven to get me better in a natural way. So she very early on spoke about metabolic balance. She didn't sort of push me into it or recommend it for me. She
Mm-hmm.
just sort of loosely spoke about the idea of metabolic balance and what it was. Now, whilst I was seeing Aralina, I was also seeing a neurologist, a great neurologist. And of course, the discussions we were having were very different. They were
Yeah.
about treatments and medications. And in order to receive a lot of the treatments and medications, I had to do a series of tests. There were MRIs, blood tests, all different types of things, which took a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm still trying to work out which. I fell into a really unique category where I wasn't actually able to, um, uh, I wasn't a candidate for a lot of the medications because I didn't have any antibodies to varicella, which is commonly known as the chickenpox virus.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I went and had some vaccinations, injections to try and obtain antibodies, and my body just rejected it. So
Oh
my
my gosh.
neurologist was
Okay.
at a loss.
Oh, wow.
He
Okay.
had never come across this situation before. I was referred to an infectious disease specialist who basically couldn't help me. So I was kind of stuck, not knowing what to do. I was really scared at the time, thinking, well, what are the options for me? And how is this disease going to progress without getting medication and modern day treatment?
Mm.
So again, Aralina raised metabolic balance with me. And I was a little bit skeptical, or a lot skeptical
I can
about
imagine
it,
you were a bit
thinking like,
skeptical. Yeah.
yeah, thinking
Yeah.
like a diet really is that really going to help me? Now, some of the symptoms I was experiencing with my condition was numbness on the right side of my body, brain fog, quite intense headaches, and
Okay.
feeling extremely weak in my limbs, which was a really scary feeling. Um, and I suppose with the lack of treatment available for me, I thought, you know what, I've got nothing to lose. Let's try it. So in February this year, I started Metabolic Balance, and I can't tell you how amazing I feel, how much it has improved my health. I've gone from being really scared about this diagnosis, unable to work for a small period of time, to being at a higher level capacity than I was pre-diagnosis, which is just mind-blowing
Wow.
for
Oh,
me. So
wow.
yeah,
I wasn't expecting to hear all of this, I have to say. I knew you'd had a great journey, but I'm like, oh. So would you mind just sharing how old you are, Angela?
I'm 30. I turned 30 last year.
So you were just 30 and you just got a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. That is big, isn't it?
It was actually a day before my 30th birthday
Oh my
party. And
God,
so
really?
my entire world just crumbled. And
Yeah,
my husband was beside himself also, being the loving husband that he is.
yeah.
And I just went into a dark bubble, and I thought, I'm going to cancel the birthday. Like, what is the rest of my life? And
Mm.
my husband picked me up and said, "No, we're having this birthday party. You need to be around people that you love, just as a reminder of how amazing you are." So it was a tough time. It was a really tough time.
So I think I just want to ask the questions that I'm kind of thinking maybe people listening want to ask here, because we've changed your diet, and if you can you just paint us through the actual changes that you started to implement and how the
Yeah,
journey sort of unveiled itself for you.
yeah.
So
So I think even before starting Metabolic Balance, I did a lot of research online about what can I do to
yeah,
sort of aid my condition. And I did start eating a cleaner diet. I cut refined sugars out of my
yeah,
diet. Was just eating,
mm,
a healthy diet.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And I can't say that I really felt any difference other than how you feel when you just start eating better. Of course, you feel great, but
yeah,
it wasn't anything mind blowing.
yeah,
So I started Metabolic Balance, and I actually started in phase two. So
yeah,
there are four phases,
yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, to
No,
the
no,
program.
got it right,
And
totally. Yep, yep,
and I started in phase two, and
yep.
my naturopath strategically placed me in phase two because
Great.
of the stresses that my body was under. So I was
Yep.
at a really high stress level, and
Mm-hmm,
Aralina, my naturopath, didn't want to cause any further undue stress onto my body.
mm-hmm.
So we decided to go straight into phase two, which was a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So I was relieved about that.
Yeah. Well, that's
And
exactly what
essentially,
it is. Yeah, that's what exactly. So important to do that, to really match somebody to where they're at and do the right introduction all the time. So yeah, I'm very pleased how Alida did that. Excellent. Carry on.
yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
was, and I thought it, even when I was going into phase two, I thought, oh, is this going to work properly? Because I'm not doing phase
Yeah.
one. And
Yeah.
Aralina assured me that,
Mm-hmm.
it's something we can alter to
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
So I completed all the blood tests, which was really easy.
Mm-hmm.
I went down to my local pathology clinic. Everything
Mm-hmm.
was done.
Awesome.
Got the results very quickly too,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had an appointment to sort of talk through the program.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of information to take on initially, but I think with the
Mm-hmm.
guidance of Aralina, I was able to break down the things that were really important and that I needed to sort of know.
Mm-hmm.
And we had, you know, regular catch ups about, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is how I'm feeling, or these are my struggles. So part of the program is there's a 5 hour um, break in between each
Yeah.
meal, which was really tricky for the first couple weeks, I would
Okay.
say.
Yeah.
Um, and now, I mean, it's June. I started in February, and I don't even think about
Mm-hmm.
snacking or anything like that. It's just become a way of life for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So you started on phase two, and what did you notice anything? How soon did you start noticing things were changing?
Yeah, I noticed probably, I think, after 2.5 weeks is when I really started to sort of feel the mental clarity.
Yep.
Weight was coming off very quickly. Now, I started at quite a healthy weight. I wasn't,
Yes. Okay, great.
an overly overweight person at all.
Yeah.
So weight loss was not my intention.
No.
Um, and Aralina made that really clear. She made it really clear that for me, the weight loss is not the intention, it's a byproduct. And she
Mm-hmm.
said, it will happen. But our goal is to get you better, and rid you of some of the symptoms of this disease. In particular, for me, it was numbness, down the right arm and down basically the entire right side of my body.
I can't
So I
imagine
noticed
how
that
scary that must be. I'm sorry, I just
yeah,
like so scary to feel that
it
at
is.
any age, but
Yeah,
especially as a young, 30-year-old woman. I just think that's
it was
yeah,
it was a really um confronting time in my life. I think when you're confronted with your own mortality, it's really scary, but it also
yeah.
puts a lot of things into perspective. So,
Mm,
and look,
mm,
it's led me to the path that I'm on now, and I'm kind of I don't want to say thankful for it. I'm not thankful for getting a
yeah,
diagnosis of a
yeah,
disease like this, but it's something that has just really mapped out the path of my life today,
yeah.
and I'm
Mm.
happier than I've ever been. I'm healthier than I've ever been. I'm stronger than I've ever been, and
Isn't that incredible? Yeah.
it's pretty incredible. Yeah,
Mm, mm,
yeah,
yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you as well with that because I was just like, yeah. So you're going back. So you started on phase two, and you're saying 2.5 weeks in, and
yeah,
everything you were starting to feel that mental clarity come back.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And so for me, the biggest symptom that started to dissipate that I was like, oh, this is working, is some of those
Yeah.
sensations, particularly
Mm,
in the leg.
mhm,
I would get a pretty strong numb nerve sort of sensation whenever
mhm,
I lay down, particularly when I was going to
mm,
bed.
mm, mm,
And I didn't even realize that it had completely gone. But Aralina, because I was seeing Aralina regularly, she
mhm,
would always prompt questions. So often I would go into an appointment and think, oh, nothing really has changed. Like I've lost a little bit of weight. Like I do feel better mentally, but nothing has really changed. And then
mhm,
she would prompt all these questions based on previous appointments. She's like, how's the numbness in the leg going? And I'm like, oh, actually, I haven't really felt that for like a number of days. And,
yeah,
it was just sort of her prompting me to reflect on some of these symptoms that really made me realize, like, wow, this is actually working.
yeah.
Um, so it's just
Mhm,
been, I have no words to sort of explain how amazing it's been for me, someone who you know, unfortunately cannot participate in any of the medications. This has really instilled a lot of faith, I suppose, for
mhm,
myself, in
mhm,
that you can manage this disease, or I can manage this disease naturally and on my own without any of the nasties, without any of the side
mhm,
effects, because I was a little bit skeptical in some of the medications just because of the really rotten side effects, like really
mm,
scary stuff, like
yeah.
brain diseases and like cancers, all these really
Mm,
really scary stuff.
mm,
And I just think if it wasn't for metabolic balance, I'm not sure what I would have done. Um,
mm.
so I'm just thrilled with the results, completely thrilled with the
And what does your neurologist say?
results.
Have you been to see him?
He Well, he's never
Mm,
pushed me into medication, which I was surprised at. I think sometimes some specialists, and it's no fault of their own.
mhm, mhm,
That's all they know. And I think it's almost too easy to say you've managed this with a diet, essentially, with
mhm,
he's receptive to it in that he has encouraged me to keep doing what I'm doing, is the word for word. Keep doing what you're doing. So my last appointment with my neurologist, the conclusion was everything had stabilized. Um, he was pretty shocked, I would say. He, is I think still a little bit skeptical of
Of course.
things. But what I'm really looking forward to is my follow up MRI in July and sort of being able to speak to him a little bit more about what I'm doing, because it's not something that is common. It's not something that, particularly in the medical field, it's not something that doctors would necessarily recommend. But I think it's important to give patients an option. Um, it's bizarre to me to think that this isn't something that is commonly known for patients with multiple sclerosis or other autoimmune diseases. It's it's if it wasn't for Aralina, there's no way I would have come across this. I just wouldn't have. So I think it's something that, like, building awareness of what this program is and what it can do, like, it's a given. I would be happy to share my experience with anyone. And in fact, I have referred people that I've, met through being
Yeah.
diagnosed with this disease, and just giving them a little bit of hope to go, well, okay, you're not having good results with your medication, or the side effects are really awful for you. Like, why? There are other options. Like, why not try it? Why not try it? Give it a go. Like,
Yeah.
I think the benefit of metabolic balance are there are no side effects. There's,
Well, there are the side effects. There are side effects, but they're all good ones.
they're all positive. They're
that's
all
the
positive.
that's the thing. I think it's probably
Yeah.
really important just to point out, or as we're talking, that we have not cured you of multiple sclerosis. This is really important to really point out. What
Yes.
what I how would you talk about that? Just in your words.
Well, look, there is no cure for
Yep.
multiple sclerosis.
Yep.
It's one of those strange diseases that's a process of elimination. There's no one test that you can do to say you have multiple sclerosis. So for me, it started off with these symptoms that I was having. I had I was fainting and, not feeling great, the numbness, brain fog, a range of different things. I then was referred to get an MRI. With that MRI, revealed lesions in my brain, and I had an MRI of the spine and lesions in the spine. Now, because and after that, I went and saw a neurologist, did an extensive range of blood tests, and it was a little while before I was actually diagnosed.
Yeah.
And my neurologist made it clear that the diagnosis of MS is a process of elimination. They will rule out all of the more sinister diseases, and if they're not in, you get classed in this category. So there is no cure because they don't know what it is, and or rather, they don't know where it comes from, what has been the trigger. Now, for me, it was stress levels that seemed to be the trigger, but there's no way of guaranteeing that that's what it was. So yeah, I'm not cured from it.
No.
As far as I know,
Yep.
I still have the lesions. I
Yep.
still have what I now describe as shadow numbness in my right hand only, in the fingers. But other than that, I I don't feel any different. I don't feel any
You feel
different than
good.
I was before the diagnosis.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a disease that even with medication cannot be cured. It's a disease that you need to live with. Now, medications, what I've been told, it can reduce the progression and stop it in its tracks, but it doesn't eliminate the disease. So what I'm interested in finding out is, well, let's based on my symptoms, it's not progressed. Based on my symptoms, it's actually gotten better. So I'm interested to see the results of my next MRI Now, I will note that I've had 2 MRIs. My initial MRI was a stronger magnet and revealed the lesions, the size of the lesions, very detailed. My second MRI was not a stronger magnet, so it was actually just done by eye, is my understanding. So
Okay.
the radiologist
Mm-hmm.
compared the initial MRI with what she was seeing physically, and the conclusion was that it was stable. Now, I don't know what that means.
When was that
They
second
can't tell
MRI
me.
done? Was that after you'd started
3 months
MB?
apart. So all MRIs are done
Okay.
three
Yeah. Yeah.
months
Yeah. Yeah.
apart.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
my next
Mm-hmm.
MRI will be in July,
July.
and
Yeah.
I've requested for the more detailed so that
Okay.
I have
Yeah.
a better idea of where things are. Right. So
Yeah.
my hope is that we've reduced the lesions
Mm-hmm.
or eliminated them. That would be even better. Um, but it will be really interesting to
Mm-hmm.
see what has actually occurred.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think because I've been on metabolic balance since February, it'll be a really good indication,
Mm-hmm.
what this plan has done
Mm-hmm.
for me in a medical perspective.
Oh, I'm just like, I desperately want to talk to you in July and hear how things are going. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, before we've got those kind of results, how are you incorporating it naturally into your life now? Because you've already shared that you don't have any difficulty. It's just generally structuring your day, the 5 hour break for between meals and that kind of thing. So, how is it that you're navigating with MB daily?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, now it's just really easy. So I know the times that work well for me to eat. I work in a corporate environment. I work at a law firm, very high stress
Right.
environment, and we don't often have a lot of breaks. So I sort of will have my breakfast at either 7 or 8 o'clock, and then I have my lunch at 12 or one
Yep.
o'clock and then my dinner 5 or 6. So it's pretty easy. And I
Mm-hmm.
think before I started the program, when I was just looking at it on paper, I thought, oh, this might be really difficult to kind of adhere to. And I think the thing that surprised me the most was just how easy it became so quickly. Other
Yeah.
than getting used to the 5 hours between the eating, I thankfully had a really good program in my food options. I know that not everyone's
Well, it's
results
all
come back.
personalized. I mean, that's it. You
Well, that
don't. Yeah, yeah. It's all personalized. That's the point. Yeah,
that's right. So
yeah.
when Aralina saw my program, she was quite happy because I obviously had gone from, a really crazy diagnosis to jumping into the metabolic balance program. And I think she was also praying that it was going to be a good program
There
for
wasn't going to
me.
be anything too awkward for you. I mean, there isn't
Yeah,
much awkward on there for most people. It really isn't like that.
yeah,
But yeah, that's great that
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So it's been really, really easy. And the way I approach it, I try and simplify it. I know people do like to get creative, particularly if you're really missing certain foods. I thankfully didn't have any cravings or issues, which is quite crazy for me because any other time I've tried to do a diet in the past for weight loss,
Mm-hmm.
it's always been a fail. One.
Yeah.
And it's always been really hard to stick to. I've always had crazy sugar cravings or crazy carb cravings. Whereas with this, and look, it could have been because of the fact that I was doing it for I would say a more serious purpose for me
Mm-hmm.
personally. Perhaps that sort of is why it was easier, or I didn't really have any of those cravings, but it was still unusual for me. It was still unusual, and to date, I don't have any desire to eat foods that I once enjoyed that were really not good for me. And interestingly, I found that my body and sugar do not match. Like they
Mm-hmm.
do not like each other. So since doing the program, I've had a couple days where I've had functions on and I didn't want to, say no to a function. I'm someone who is quite
Mm-hmm.
social. Now, often the way that I would approach something like that is I'll just eat at home and
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. But there were a couple occasions where I was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna have some of this food and we'll just see what happens. And interestingly, I realized very quickly that there were certain foods that I was like, I don't want to feel like this. Like this is not,
Yeah.
this is not the way that I want to feel. So sugar is one of those things that just doesn't agree with me. Now I don't get awfully sick, but I don't feel well. I can't
Mm-hmm.
really describe it. So I think
Mm.
that's been a big eye opener for me.
Yeah. I think basically, well, from my clinical experience of using MB for quite a long time now, I would actually say with MB, you've really stabilized your blood sugar balance, which is why you haven't really had the cravings as well. Yes, I know you had a very strong motivation to focus in those early few weeks, but it doesn't take much once you've got that focus to then have the natural balance that means we're not in this jerky kind of slumps and cravings kind of place,
Yeah.
which is the norm for a lot of people. And it's
Mm.
also it's so interesting to hear you say how you were recognizing the link with what you were eating and how it was actually making you feel, and then it was like, I don't want to feel like this.
Yeah. And it's been so good. It's been so good having those
Yeah.
revelations
Yeah.
because it's just kind of made it easier to eat in
Yeah.
accordance with the program.
Yeah.
And
Which is
it's
actually
funny
in
because
accordance with what's healthy for you, though. That's the
that's
thing.
right.
It's actually
Yeah.
what means that you feel good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I started the program, I thought, oh, it'll be a 3 month thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then that'll be it. And I realized that it's a lifestyle thing. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it is a lifelong thing, and
Mm-hmm.
um, I've got my husband onto it as well, meaning he's eating the same foods I eat, and he's interesting. I'm gonna try and get him to do it properly, as in
Good.
go
Yeah.
and see the naturopath
Yeah.
and have his
Get.
own program written
Yeah.
up because he has Crohn's disease
Ah,
and
so that's another autoimmune.
he right and so
Mm.
when he's been strictly eating what I'm eating and not snacking in between and not going out for dinners or anything, he feels a lot better. And
Mm.
I'm like, well, that's interesting. So I'd love for him to go get his own
Yeah.
program and just sort of figure out what's right for him. So that's a work in progress. I'll probably get him to do it at some point.
I would think, and I mean, just from my own experience, I would say that could be amazing if you just, so if you both really knew the best, most ideal foods for you to build up, and you're not doing this all the time. I mean, that's the thing that's really important to share, isn't it? You still can,
Right.
but you learn then what you are going to do in phase 4, which is actually living your best life with the knowledge of
Yeah.
when to dip into a true focus on your foods when you really do need that little bit of reset or support.
Yeah,
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 absolutely. And I haven't yet fully dived into phase 4. I'm really happy with sitting in my phase and just
yeah,
kind of enjoying and reaping the benefits
yeah.
of it.
Great.
And I think that's the beauty of metabolic balance is you can really have it cater you and where you're at in your
Mm-hmm.
journey. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I'll stick to this phase for as
Mm-hmm.
long as I need
Mm-hmm.
to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been like a
Mm-hmm.
breath of fresh air in some of the darkest times in my
Mm.
life.
Yeah. So if there is somebody listening here today who is either has an autoimmune condition or is just thinking about metabolic balance because they are feeling just not right, just something is happening, what would you say to them?
it was the best thing that I ever did. It sounds really cheesy, but give it a go. You have nothing to lose,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely nothing to lose, and everything
Mm-hmm.
to gain. I have a whole new lease on life, which sounds really dramatic, but it's the truth. Um, and I think it's something that somebody in my position, where you're diagnosed with some autoimmune disease or any sort of disease
Mm-hmm.
that is impacting your life, and if you're scared and you're not sure what to do, and perhaps you want to try some natural options before you dive into anything anything else, or you want to do it in conjunction with medication,
Yeah,
give it a go.
absolutely.
Just give
Yeah,
it a go.
because it is just food, isn't it? It's just real food
Correct.
you buy from the supermarket or your health food or any food shop in your locality.
Yeah.
Proteins,
And
veggies, fruits.
most of my grocery
Hmm.
shopping is done at the local grocers.
Yep.
I don't go to any specialty
Hmm.
grocers. I personally like to get my meat from markets, but
Hmm.
often I don't have the time, or
Hmm.
it's not necessarily easy accessible to
Hmm.
me. So
Hmm.
majority of my grocery shopping is done at my local grocery store.
Yeah.
It's not something you can really make it work for whatever lifestyle you have.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Angela. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And I really would love it if I could invite you back on maybe in August, July, August, after you've had that MRI. Just actually I'd love to hear next
Yeah,
steps. Yeah, that would be
I
amazing.
am more than happy to come back and share some more positive and good news.
That'd be amazing. Thank you. And yeah, if anybody is interested in learning about metabolic balance, just do a little Google search and watch a few more of these podcasts and on YouTube or listen to them. But yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that, Angela.
Thank you for having me.